We were educated to work. We were not educated to start up stuff. So the fact that you finished school as a chemical engineer, all you knew how to do was to write a CV. I hereby look for a job as a what? You never thought that as a chemical engineer, you could go back to the village, find out some active ingredients in Mhlonyana, and come up with your own thing for flu and what, and package it and sell. You are an engineer, for crying out loud. You should be able to convert purple juice into proper juice and put it on the shelves. You should be able to start using your chemical engineering knowledge in creating brands. No, instead, how beautiful is your CV? I work under pressure. I'm a team player. I have good attitude, and etc. So the whole country of graduates was walking the streets looking for employment, and employment was saturated. So people ended up leaving the country to come to other countries. I was in Britain myself. I was in the US. I was here in South Africa. So that's group one. Group two.
Welcome to Wake Up Black. Educate and enlighten.
The politics of the world is not as friendly as the African youth think. It's the dog eat dog, and those that have money determine the politics.
It's elections on Wednesday while we're experiencing BRICS week here in South Africa. It's a Monday today, the 21st of August. Wednesday, elections in Zimbabwe. What would you like to say to Zimbabweans that are here in South Africa right now? And what would you like to say to the Zimbabweans all over the world?
The Zimbabweans that have traveled outside of the country, I'll put them in two groups. Group number one is what I call economic refugees, who have been pushed out of the country because they are qualified, they are trained, and all kudos to Mugabe for giving us a free educational system that allowed us all to study. But
you guys are intelligent, by the way. You guys are all educated, very educated.
And most uncultured, of course. We're British. The more educated you become, the less cultured you become. So with this amount of development in the academic space that happened, unfortunately, it did not match with the manufacturing and the production industries on the left that would then take these students and swallow them into the system. So you find that academically, we overproduced what our local market could consume. That became a fact. So job competition became very tight. At the end of the day, those who had extra skills, extra money, sell a goat, sell a cow, go and get another place where those skills can be appreciated. So that's group number one, economic refugees. And of course, some of them would want to blame that movement on the regime, that we did not have jobs, did not have what. But I beg to differ. We were educated to work. We were not educated to start up stuff. So the fact that you finished school as a chemical engineer, all you knew how to do was to write a CV. I hereby look for a job as a what? You never thought that as a chemical engineer, you could go back to the village, find out some active ingredients in Mhlonyana, and come up with your own thing for flu and what, and package it and sell. You are an engineer, for crying out loud. You should be able to convert purple juice into proper juice and put it on the shelves. You should be able to start using your chemical engineering knowledge in creating brands. No, instead, how beautiful is your CV? I work under pressure. I'm a team player. I have good attitude, and etc. So the whole country of graduates was walking the streets looking for employment, and employment was saturated. So people ended up leaving the country to come to other countries. I was in Britain myself. I was in the US. I was here in South Africa. So that's group one. Group two are what I might call political refugees, who in any event quarreled with the government in whatever way, in oppositions, pro or against, factions and etc. within the party. And then they had to run for their own lives for whatever reason that could. So you'd find that when they are outside here, I want to tell the Zimbabwean community, it is beautiful back home. If you came here as an asylum and you know that you're not an asylum seeker, correct that and go back home. The business back home is booming in a nice way. Please, like Chivu Dam, beautiful dam, the beautiful, it looks into the water. Plots that can be done, the hotels that can be done, the highway is now close by there. Reinvest back home, adopt your village. There's no reason for you coming to South Africa here and you're holding some iPhones and playing on the internet, buying DSTV when there's not even a borehole at your mother's house. So invest back home. You cannot be here trying to drive cars on higher pitches. and trying to look the part in Sandton and in Johannesburg. Invest back home, because I know wherever you are as a Zimbabwean, you don't want to die in those countries. You want to go back to your own country. So invest in your village. Look back home. And if need be, come back home. But it's too late to register to vote now. But start collecting your money, whichever country you are in. Hear me in my criminal mind. Go to the banks of those countries and look for a loan in those countries. Use your financial muscle while in that country to get a loan. Take that loan. $5,000-$10,000. Go back to Zim, get yourself a mine, build yourself a dam, put some agricultural projects, convert your cash into wealth creation. The time to invest is now. Immediately the sanctions are lifted out of Zimbabwe, you won't afford that country. It will be grab dog eat dog. So while you still have opportunities, and some of these guys who are here, the painful part. Umuntu uyahlupheka la, usebenza kubo Black Rock. Wait, ulinda ma 5 rand. On his father's farm, sitting on a diamond in a gold mine. Like literally. I'm saying this word, or on a platinum and a lithium mine. On an iron ore, on a copper, on a manganese mine. 60 to 80% of Zimbabwe is mineable. On a granite mine for paving and etc. And you are here waiting for tips of 5 rand. And then they come around, no, but you don't have funds. You don't have funds. You don't need funds because you don't have an idea. Go back there and establish what is there. A good idea, you can walk up to the bank, to the funders, and say, here's what I have. Can you put money into this? So the process of converting our raw materials that we have into business units, that's what's lacking in our academic institutions. We are manufacturing employees. I almost said we're manufacturing fools. We're manufacturing midgets. We're manufacturing intellectual dwarfs who glorify themselves with the number of certificates on the wall instead of the number of products on the table. So our obsession with how many, so which graduate school did you go to? Oh, and then we gloat over this. Who has ever left a degree as an inheritance for their children? Who has left a piece of paper, a PhD, and says, who eats a piece of paper? So the quality of our learning has not taught us to put our hands, convert those papers into more fire, into cell phones, into cars, into cameras, into clothes, and make the wealth that we need. And so we cannot complain while we're in far countries that the country is not what we're waiting for you. You are there in the countries, in South Africa here, in Europe, working in those strategic companies, pharmaceuticals, constructions, engineering, hospitals, and etc. And you tell me that with all that knowledge that you have, you can't come back home and make it good. You can't come back, even if you collect a bit of that information, how to run an old age home, if you're in Britain, and come back to Zimbabwe and try and build an old age home. We always say in good English, a man with one eye is a king amongst the blind. So the small knowledge that you have received from the countries where you are, it's high time you come and bring it here. And this one is for all the Americans and all our brothers who are in diaspora. Collect your investments. Start looking towards Africa. The American dollar, as we said, is collapsing. It's time we start now focusing at the African continent as the next biggest thing that the world has ever seen. We still host here 90% of the world's reserves and resources in all fraternities. We here, our country is more than 30 million watt miles of land, and we're only 1.3 billion, the least populated continent on the whole world. And yet people are saying, oh, Africa is overpopulated, Africa is overpopulated. Just shut up a little bit. You don't know what you're talking about. We are only 1.4 billion on a 30 million kilometers of land. China is overpopulated. Look at their population vis-a-vis their land. Look at Europe vis-a-vis their land. In Namibia, for example, we have one of the biggest countries uninhabited. Bushes and sand, hundreds of kilometers. So how can you be telling us that the United Nations policy of the world is getting overpopulated? We need to reduce Africa, contraception, family planning to reduce the population when there is so much land. I mean, just drive out of Vereeniging for crying out loud. Just drive out into Carltonville here. Just drive out into Gezina here, or Mpumalanga, in any direction. Tell me 10 kilometers out of town, what do you see?
Land. multiple land and kilometers and tens and hundreds of kilometers.
Val
of land.
Drakensberg.
It's just land.
With no one there. And then someone tells us that we are overpopulated. I mean, some of these narratives needs to be corrected. It's you overpopulated over there, not us here. And don't make your problem our problem. At the end of the day, you want to reduce us here. Why? Because then you can have more access to our resources. And then you can benefit your own countries. And Africa, for the longest of time, has become a resource supplier instead of a product supplier, finished product supplier. And until we begin to produce products, we can't talk employment. So our governments, I beg them, our governments, stop politicking. Take it from me. Become a dictator and a rebel. Take the government taxpayers' money. Go to China. Buy factories that manufacture chairs, tables, beds, car parts. Bring those factories here. Go to Rustenburg, go to Daphne, go and get some iron ore. Pour those things into these casts. Produce final products. You cannot be failed to produce chassis for cars. Or just lights. Or handbrakes. Or skins just for the cars. But that's where employment happens. And once employment happens, you don't need to build people RDP houses. People can build themselves the houses that they want. Because they have access to the economy, and they have access to the bank, and they have access to their own salaries. So the whole economic development must not be a handout kind of an economy where we're giving you SASA. Next thing, you're queuing for a house. Here's a house. You're killing people. Who says I want to stay in one small little room? That's why you find that if you need to drive around Johannesburg, people are invading farms just outside Johannesburg. But guess what is painful, Spo? Ask me what's painful.
What's painful?
People are invading land. But the size of the land they're invading is equivalent to the mkuku that is in their head. They don't invade 1 hectare. They don't invade 2 hectares and say, hey, my gents, hey, Sengila. They are all invading Mukuku land, where you can only put two metal sheets.
You've already invaded. Might as well just take a bigger piece of land.
You may as well just take it.
Because it's enough for everybody.
I mean, Maponga orange farm, across the I actually stood on the side of the road with my gents. Now, umhlaba uyabaleka usuka la uyofike Lebanon. You are still invading 5 meters by 2 meters. And now the people burning those things. One leaves their heater on, the whole bush catches fire. So it's not even about. And Malema must also start saying these things. And I'm saying so very selectively. He must start saying these things. That if we are going to be taking land, let's not have the Mukuku mindset. Let's have the farm mindset, industrial mindset, estate mindset, enclosure accommodation mindset. Because if you can take 2-3 hectares, for example, and sit on it, by the time it is standardized, you can put some flats, you can put a factory, you can put an industry, you can put some accommodation, you can put a hotel. But how can you put a hotel in a 5 meter by 2 meter? What can you do in that piece of land? So we needed even the mindset of the EFF liberation struggle heroes, even the ANC, that stop cutting pieces of Mkuku policies into the thinking of the Africans and to think that people have land when they are still living in Mkuku. We are going nowhere. We are running in circles like small little rats that are trapped on a running mill. Let's start thinking development, ownership. And in the midst of that, we can actually begin to look at estates that must be invaded and owned by black people. And you don't have to apologize for that.